Did you know that New York City has its own private forest larger than most national parks? That parts of the city are sinking, slowly, quietly under their own weight? And that some of the most powerful decisions shaping America were not made in Washington, but in New York, boardrooms most citizens will never see? New York is not just loud, fast, and famous. It is not just yellow cabs, Broadway shows, and pizza arguments. It is layered. It is engineered. It is a machine built on top of older machines, running on systems most people never notice. Many of its most important truths sound fake until you look closer. Most people think they understand New York. They have seen the movies. They have walked through Times Square. They have formed opinions based on headlines and stereotypes. But the real New York operates beneath the surface, literally and figuratively. Today, you will discover 50 New York facts that sound fake, but are completely true. Let's begin. New York City's drinking water doesn't come from treatment plants like most major cities. It comes from protected wilderness. The Catskill and Delaware watersheds span nearly 2 million acres of carefully protected forest, streams, and reservoirs, all maintained to supply clean drinking water to 9 million New Yorkers. This system is so effective that New York is one of only 5 major cities in America that doesn't need to filter most of its water. Nature does the filtration instead. Most New Yorkers have never seen this forest, but they drink from it every day. Parts of New York City are sinking. The sheer weight of New York's built environment is pressing down on the earth beneath it. Skyscrapers, reclaimed land, and millions of tons of concrete are slowly compressing the soil. Geologists call this subsidence. In parts of Lower Manhattan and along waterfront areas built on landfill, the sinking is measurable, millimeters per year that add up over decades. Combined with rising sea levels, this creates a slow-motion collision between the city's weight and surrounding water. New York is slowly pressing itself into the ground. Number 48. Central Park covers 843 acres in the heart of Manhattan, larger than Monaco, larger than Vatican City, larger than most American downtown cores. But Central Park isn't just green space. It functions as a climate buffer, absorbing heat that would otherwise bake surrounding neighborhoods. It serves as a wildlife corridor and psychological release valve. Central Park wasn't accidental. It was engineered to make impossible density survivable, and it works. 47. New York was once the capital of the United States. Before Washington, D.C. existed, New York City served as the nation's capital. George Washington was inaugurated as the first president on Wall Street in 1789. For a brief period, New York was the center of American political power. Congress met there and treaties were signed there. The capital moved to Philadelphia, then eventually to the purpose-built District of Columbia. But New York's role in founding the nation's government is older than most realize. 46. Wall Street was built on a defensive wall. The name isn't metaphorical. Wall Street is named after an actual wooden wall that Dutch settlers built across Lower Manhattan in the 1600s. The wall was defensive, designed to protect the colony from British invasion and from indigenous peoples who were being pushed out of the territory. The wall eventually came down as the city expanded, but the street kept the name. Centuries later, it became the center of global finance. The most powerful financial address in the world is named after a wooden barrier built by worried colonists. Number 45. New York has more than 700 miles of subway track. The New York subway system contains over 700 miles of track, enough to stretch from Manhattan to Chicago. Much of it runs beneath rivers, through solid bedrock and under century-old foundations. Some tunnels were built before World War I. Some stations have operated continuously for over 100 years. The subway moves millions of people daily through infrastructure that predates most American institutions. It is aging, stressed, and irreplaceable. Manhattan is mostly bedrock. Other boroughs are not. Manhattan's famous skyline exists because of geology. The island sits on schist and granite bedrock that can support enormous weight. But this bedrock is not uniform. There is a gap in Midtown, which is why early skyscrapers clustered downtown and in Midtown, with lower buildings between. Other boroughs sit on softer soil, clay, and sand that cannot support the same weight without enormous foundation work. Geology shaped the skyline more than any urban planner. 43. The city still uses pneumatic tubes. In an age of digital communication, parts of New York still move physical objects through underground air-powered tube systems. Banks, hospitals, and certain government facilities still use pneumatic tubes to transport documents, cash, and medical samples. The infrastructure was built decades ago and never fully replaced. Walking above these tubes, New Yorkers have no idea that capsules are shooting through pipes beneath their feet. Number 42. There are secret subway stations. Not every subway station appears on maps. Some were built but never opened. Some were abandoned when routes changed. Others exist solely for maintenance or government purposes. City Hall Station, one of the most beautiful ever built, closed in 1945 because its curved platform could not accommodate longer modern trains. It still exists, perfectly preserved. The subway system has layers regular commuters never see. 41. Times Square was once a horse district. Before neon lights and digital billboards, Times Square was Long Acre Square, the center of New York's horse trade. Stables, carriage houses, and manure-filled streets defined the neighborhood. The transformation into the crossroads of the world came later, driven by theaters, newspapers, and advertising technology. Times Square did not evolve naturally. It was deliberately reinvented, multiple times. 40. New York has its own climate. New York City is measurably warmer than surrounding areas, sometimes by 5 degrees or more. This urban heat island effect results from concrete, asphalt, and buildings absorbing and radiating heat. Weather behaves differently within city limits. Rain patterns shift. Wind tunnels form between buildings. Microclimates emerge, block by block. The city does not just exist in its climate. It creates its own. 39. Brooklyn was once the fourth largest city in America. Before 1898, Brooklyn was not part of New York City. It was independent and, at the time, the fourth largest city in the United States. Brooklyn had its own government and civic pride. Consolidation merged it into Greater New York, erasing its independence but not its distinctiveness. Brooklyn did not join New York. It was absorbed. 38. The city has more languages spoken than any place on Earth. Over 800 languages are spoken across New York's neighborhoods, more than any other city on the planet. Some languages have more speakers in Queens than in their countries of origin. Entire communities preserve dialects that are dying elsewhere. The city is not just multicultural. It is the most linguistically dense place humans have ever built. 37. New York is one of the world's largest ports. Still, New York's identity as a port city faded from popular consciousness. But the Port of New York and New Jersey remains one of the busiest on the East Coast. Container ships and cargo vessels move through waters most New Yorkers never see. The logistics networks employ thousands and move billions in goods annually. New York is still a port city. Most people just forgot. 36. The Bronx is the only borough on the mainland. Manhattan is an island. Staten Island's name speaks for itself. Brooklyn and Queens sit on Long Island. Only the Bronx connects to the North American mainland. Every other borough requires bridges, tunnels, or ferries to reach. New York is an archipelago that forgot it was one. Much of Lower Manhattan is man-made land. The original shoreline of Manhattan was hundreds of feet east of where it sits today. Over centuries, New Yorkers expanded the island using landfill, soil, rubble, and even sunken ships. Battery Park City sits on land that did not exist 50 years ago. Entire neighborhoods stand on ground that was underwater when the Dutch arrived. Parts of Manhattan were not just built, they were invented. If you enjoy uncovering truths that sound fake until you see the evidence, subscribe to Hard Truth Untold. We slow things down and look closer. Hit subscribe. There is more ahead. New York has its own judicial island. Rikers Island isn't just a jail. It's a self-contained legal and administrative system on its own island in the East River. The complex holds thousands of inmates, employs thousands of staff, and has its own power systems, food services, and medical facilities. Rikers operates like a small city, one most New Yorkers know only by reputation. Some subway stations are below sea level. Several stations sit beneath the water table, protected only by pumps that run continuously to keep water out. During Hurricane Sandy, those pumps failed. Salt water surged into the subway system, causing damage that took years to repair. New York's subway runs under the water table, and only constant human intervention keeps it dry. 32. New York once had wild wolves. Before urbanization, the land that became New York was wilderness. Wolves, black bears, and cougars roamed forests covering what is now Midtown Manhattan. Indigenous peoples hunted this land for thousands of years before European contact. Every block of New York City was once wild. The paving was thorough, erasing almost every trace. 31. The Empire State Building was built in just over a year. The Empire State Building, 102 floors and 1,454 feet tall, was constructed in approximately 410 days. The speed was driven by competition and desperation during the Great Depression to create jobs. Workers moved at a pace impossible under modern safety regulations. It was reckless, it was remarkable, and it still stands. 30. New York's street grid was a real estate strategy. The famous Manhattan grid was not designed for beauty or convenience. It was designed to sell land. The Commissioner's Plan of 1811 imposed a rigid grid because rectangular lots were easy to survey, subdivide, and sell. New York's orderly streets are not evidence of planning wisdom. They are evidence of commercial priorities. The city has more billionaires than any other. New York hosts more than 100 individuals worth over $1 billion. Yet hundreds of thousands of people in the same city can't afford basic housing. New York's billionaires and its struggling families breathe the same air. That's about all they share. Some neighborhoods were built on top of cemeteries. When New York expanded, graveyards stood in the way. The solution was relocation, digging up remains to make room for development. Not all relocations were complete. Construction projects occasionally uncover forgotten bones. Washington Square Park was once a potter's field where over 20,000 bodies were buried. Most were never moved. 27. The subway never closes. Unlike most transit systems, New York's subway runs 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It never fully shuts down. Repairs happen while trains run, with workers operating in tunnels with live traffic. Running around the clock is a point of pride. It is also a constraint that makes maintenance harder than systems that shut down overnight. 26. New York has its own farming regions. Upstate New York is not just suburbs. It is agricultural territory producing apples, dairy, wine, and grains at commercial scale. The Hudson Valley and Finger Lakes regions support farming operations, feeding markets across the Northeast. New York grows food. The city just makes more noise. Fact 25. The city consumes enormous amounts of energy daily. New York City's electrical demand on a peak summer day exceeds the total capacity of some countries. Air conditioning, elevators, and subways create a constant draw. Power grids operate under continuous stress. Margins between supply and demand are thinner than residents realize. New York's energy appetite is insatiable. The systems feeding it aren't unlimited. New York has its own independent power authority. The New York Power Authority operates independently from private utilities, managing hydroelectric dams and transmission lines that supply large portions of the state. Most New Yorkers have no idea this entity exists or how much power it holds, literally and politically. Wall Street influences global time zones. Financial markets in New York set the rhythm for global finance. When Wall Street opens, markets worldwide react. Conference calls, announcements, and transactions are scheduled around New York time. Wall Street doesn't just move money, it organizes time. Some buildings have no address. Certain structures in New York exist administratively, but not publicly. They have utility connections and permits, but no listed address. Some are infrastructure facilities, ventilation buildings, substations, maintenance access points. Others serve undisclosed purposes. New York has buildings invisible in plain sight. 21st, New York's population density creates a unique psychology. Living in extreme density changes how humans think and behave. New Yorkers develop the ability to filter stimuli, ignore strangers, and navigate chaos without conscious processing. Personal space expectations shrink. Tolerance for noise increases. New York doesn't just shape behavior, it shapes cognition. 20. The city has more rats than people think. Estimates of New York's rat population range from 2 million to over 30 million. Some researchers believe there could be a rat for every resident or more. Rats occupy a parallel city beneath the streets. Eradication is impossible, and management is constant. New York has residents who do not pay rent and never leave. New York once planned an airport in Manhattan. In the 1940s, planners proposed building a major airport on Manhattan's west side, extending the island into the Hudson River with landfill. The proposal was serious enough to produce architectural drawings, but it was eventually abandoned. The airport never happened. Still, that ambition helped shape other projects that did. 18. There are underground rivers. Beneath New York streets, buried streams still flow, remnants of the natural watershed that existed before urbanization. Minetta Brook ran through Greenwich Village. Collect Pond once sat where courthouses now stand. These features were filled or channeled into sewers, but not eliminated. New York paved over nature. Nature is still flowing underneath. 17. The city's elevators move more people than its subways. In a city of skyscrapers, vertical transit matters as much as horizontal. New York's elevators collectively move more people every day than the subway. Elevator technology shaped what New York could become. The city grew upward because elevators made height accessible. 16. New York has a nighttime economy larger than the GDP of many countries. After dark, New York does not stop. Restaurants, logistics, sanitation, hospitals, and transit keep running through every hour. The nighttime economy generates billions annually, rivaling the entire GDP of smaller nations. The city that never sleeps is not poetic exaggeration. It is economic description. The city is constantly rebuilding itself. Demolition is as common as construction. Buildings that seem permanent come down for newer, taller structures. Few Manhattan structures are more than a century old. Most neighborhoods have been rebuilt multiple times. Permanence is an illusion here. 14. Some apartments were never meant for humans. Housing shortages push people into spaces never designed for habitation. Converted storage units, illegal basements, and subdivided commercial spaces. These spaces lack proper ventilation and fire exits. They exist because demand so dramatically exceeds supply. New York's housing crisis is not just about prices. It is about people living in spaces that were not built for living. 13. New York shaped modern advertising. Billboards, branding, mass marketing, and consumer persuasion evolved in New York. Madison Avenue became synonymous with advertising for a reason. The psychological manipulation that defines modern marketing was pioneered by New York agencies. New York didn't just sell products, it invented how products are sold. 12. The city runs on layered infrastructure. New York's infrastructure is not a single system, it is layers. New systems are built on top of old ones, rarely replacing what came before. 19th century pipes run alongside 20th century cables and alongside 21st century fiber optics. Dig anywhere, and you might find surprises nobody remembers installing. New York has its own ecosystems. Urban ecologists study the city as a functioning ecosystem with its own food webs and evolutionary pressures. Rooftop gardens create pollinator habitat. Subway stations host microbial communities. Peregrine falcons hunt pigeons from skyscrapers. Nature did not leave New York. It adapted. Number 10. The cost of living is a structural feature. New York's extreme costs are not accidental. They are structural, built into zoning laws and housing policies that prioritize scarcity. Limited construction keeps supply low. Global wealth keeps prices high. New York is expensive on purpose. 9. New York has been rebuilt after major disasters before. Fires that destroyed districts, blackouts that paralyzed the city, terrorist attacks that killed thousands. Each time, New York rebuilt. Resilience is institutional memory here, but resilience should not be confused with invulnerability. New York survives. That is not the same as being undamaged. Number 8. The city exports culture more than goods. New York's most significant exports are not physical products. They are cultural: music, fashion, finance, media. Broadway shapes global theater. Wall Street shapes global finance. New York media shapes narratives consumed around the world. New York manufactures, meaning more than materials. Some neighborhoods change languages every few blocks. Walk through Queens and you'll pass through linguistic territories: Russian, Korean, Spanish, Bengali, each shifting block by block. These are not just ethnic neighborhoods. They are functional language zones. New York is not just multilingual. It is a mosaic where tiles keep rearranging. New York is always in transition. Nothing stays the same. Neighborhoods gentrify. Industries relocate. Populations shift. Long-term New Yorkers recognize this pattern. They don't mourn what disappears, because they know something will replace it. New York rewards adaptation. It punishes those expecting permanence. 5. The city survives on systems most people never see. Water tunnels run hundreds of feet below. Power substations are hidden in ordinary buildings. Maintenance crews work in subway tunnels overnight. If these systems stopped for even a day, the city would become uninhabitable. New York runs on invisible labor and hidden infrastructure. Number 4. New York is both fragile and resilient. The systems running New York are stressed, aging, and operating near capacity, and a major shock could cascade across interdependent systems. Yet the city has survived crises that would have destroyed lesser places. New York exists in a tension between what could break it and what keeps it going. Number 3. Living here changes how people think. New York recalibrates expectations. Time moves differently. Space means something different. Privacy becomes a resource. People who live here develop different relationships with crowds, noise, and inconvenience. Leaving New York often means relearning how other places operate. Leaving New York is often practical, not emotional. People leave for rational reasons: affordability, space, family, and quality of life. Departure is not failure. For many, it is the obvious decision when costs exceed benefits. Yet many who leave return. The pull remains. New York isn't fake, it's compressed reality. New York seems unreal because everything happens closer together. Wealth and poverty share blocks. Celebrity and anonymity coexist. The intensity isn't artificial. It's concentration. Human experience compressed into small spaces. That's why it feels unreal. Not because it's fake, because it's more real than most people can process at once. Which of these 50 facts surprised you the most? Or which one do you think most people refuse to believe, even when proven true? Leave it in the comments, and if there is a New York truth we missed, expose it below. There is another video on screen right now that breaks down another place people think they understand, but do not. Subscribe to Hard Truth Untold, because the truth does not shout. It waits for you to